Hello and welcome. In this chapter, we will explore the basics of variables in Go, including how to declare and use them in your code. Variables are an essential component of programming as they allow you to store and manipulate data in your programs. We will start by discussing what variables are and how they work in Go. We will then move on to cover some of the deeper data types that you can use for variables in Go, including integers, floats, booleans, and strings. In this chapter, we will write a code example to demonstrate how variables work in practice. In keeping with our previous chapter, we will develop a sample program using the test-driven development approach. By the end of this lesson, you will have a solid understanding of how to work with variables in Go, and you will be ready to start incorporating them in your own programs. Let's start with definitions. So, what are variables in programming in general? Well, a variable is a named storage location that holds a value or data. In simple terms, it is a container that stores a piece of information that a program can use later on. Variables are essential in programming as they enable us to write code that is dynamic and can handle different scenarios. By storing values in variables, we can manipulate data and perform computations based on user input or other factors. In programming, variables are typically defined by a data type, which specifies the type of data that can be stored in the variable. For example, integer variables can only store whole numbers, while string variables can store text or characters. It is also worth noting that variables in programming can have different scopes, which determines their variable can be accessed in the program. Local variables, for instance, are only accessible within a specific function, while global variables can be accessed from anywhere in the program. Okay, now let's start to explore what are variables in Go. Before we dive into exploring variables, let's first take a look at an example program what we will be using to demonstrate how to work with variables. Our task is to write a program that calculates order price based on a parameter such as item price, items quantity, tax rate, and discount availability. The formula is simple. We need to multiply the item price by quantity. If there is a discount, we need to multiply the result of the previous operation by discount. After that, we need to calculate tax amount. For that, we need to multiply the total price, the result of previous operations, by tax rate. Okay, so now we can get the final price of the order, which is the result of the summation of the total price and tax amount. Okay, so let's start to write our program. It will be a new Go package inside our module Go Sandbox. So let's create a new folder inside our project root folder. The name of the package is OPC, which stands for Order Price Calculator. To create a folder, you can use command mk directory in the terminal. Now open this folder using cd command. We need to create a file opc.go that will contain all logic for an order price calculator program, and opc_test.go with tests. Most of the logic will be in the function called calculate order price. So let's declare this function. Okay, so now let's create a file that will contain tests for function calculate order price. Okay, since we have a file for our tests, let's start to write them. A function calculate order price takes several parameters such as item price, quantity, tax rate, and discount. This function should return a string that contains information about final order price. The tax and discount, if there is one, are included. A string that the function calculate order price should return will always have the same view or pattern. The final price is n, where n is the number or value of final price. Okay, let's start with the first simple test case for the function. First of all, we need to declare several variables that will be used as the arguments of the function. We need variable for item price, quantity, tax rate, and discount. Let's start with item price. In Go, you can declare variables in several ways. The syntax of the first one looks like this. In our case, we can declare a variable item price like that. So here the variable name is item price and the Variable's type is float64. What is type float64? Float is basically stands for floating point number. It is a data type that represents a decimal number with a fractional component. It is used to store real numbers that may have a decimal point, such as 3.14 or 0.5. In real life, there are prices for some items that looks like 2.5, for example euros, or the favorite reduced price like 3.99 that tries to make you feel that you buy an item for free, but it's basically 4 euros or dollars. By looking at the syntax of this variable declaration, you may wonder, where is the value of this variable? Well, in this case, the value of variable item price is actually 0. It is a 0 value or default value for type float64, and actually for all numeric types in Go. There are no unassigned variables in Go. Okay, but we need to have some real item price because there is nothing for free in this whole world, right? Except open source project and Linux, of course. We need to initialize variable item price and assign some value to the variable. For example, let's say our item's price is $2.99. To assign a value to variable in Go, you need to use equal sign. But why is the type called float64? What does 64 mean in this context? We will talk about this in a chapter on numeric data types in Go. Great, now we need to declare next variable to pass it as a quantity argument in our function calculate order price. So let's do it. The syntax is the same, but we will have another variable type, int type. We will also initialize a variable with value 3. What is int type in Go? Type int stands for integer number and represents whole numbers. It is also a numeric data type as float64, but numbers with int type don't have fractional components unlike float64. The 0 value or default value of int type is 0, the same as for float64. The next variable what we will use in our test is tax rate, and it should be float64 again. Let's declare this variable. Okay, and finally all we need is to declare a variable for the last parameter of our function calculate order price, which is discount. This variable should represent a flag, or in other words, two states that can be described as there is discount or there is no discount. And for this case, there is no better data type than bool type. Let's declare a variable with this type. Bool data type stands for boolean and it represents a logical value. A variable with this data type can only have two values, true or false. In our case, true means that there is a discount and false means there is no discount for the order. The 0 value of bool type in Go is false. In our first test case, we will get an order price with a discount, so let's initialize variable discount with value true. Wonderful, we have all variables for all 4 parameters of function calculate order price. And all we need to do is to call this function and pass variables as arguments of this function. Since the function returns a result value, we need to store it somewhere, so let's declare an initialize variable got with returned value of function calculate order price. And now all we need to do is to compare the result variable with expected value. Pretty the same logic as in the test of hello world function in the previous chapter. In this case, we're expecting a returned value as a string. I already did calculations with arguments that we have in our test, and the order price should be 8.64. Now it's time to run our test for the first time. They didn't implement any logic inside calculate order price, so the test will fail, but let's just stick to our test-driven development cycle. Now it's a step 2 and it goes like run test. All tests must be failed because you don't have enough code that passes this test. Okay, now run the test in the terminal. Test failed as expected. Now we need to write simplest code that passes the test. Let's open file main.go and change function calculate order price. We're gonna declare function parameters in the same order as we pass variables in our test. Also, we need to specify return type of the function which is a string. Since we tell Go that function calculate order breadth should return string, let's return at least empty string for now. Okay, now if you run the test, you will see that it failed again, but at least we're sure now that if function returns value which is not equal to our expected value, the test will fail. Okay, if we follow the first step of the test during development cycle, we still need to write the simplest code that passes the test.